fantastical world with help from you, our listeners. My name is Rob Hilferty, and I'm here with National Security Advisor to National Personal Trainer Awareness Day, Chris Prunty, as well as our continued special guest, Daniel Quinn. Gentlemen, how you doing today?
Doing good.
Not viral yet.
not viral yet. Yeah.
In what
On
sense?
today's episode, we're actually very, very excited to have with us Dael Kingsmill of, well, just her being Dael Kingsmill, but also you might know her from the YouTube channel Monarch's Factory. We're going to go and cut straight to the interview now because I'm just excited to get right to it. And so here we go. Hello, friends, and we are here today with Dael Kingsmill. Dael, for those of us who are, for those of us who are woefully inclined to not know who you are, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So hi there. I'm Dael Kingsmill. So I run a YouTube channel. I've been running it for I don't know, seven-ish years at this point. And it started out, I was retelling tales from classical mythology, just with a little bit of a humorous bent. And then over time, I started dipping into other kinds of videos I wanted to make. And one day stumbled across, I decided to make a video about D&D and some of my homebrew rules, and people started paying attention and liked them, and so here I am now continuing to make D&D things, and people seem to like them. I hope they like them, but you know, even if they don't, I enjoy it, so I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah, I think that's really important to recognize is you keep doing it for your own sake because, you know, what's the point otherwise, right? If you're not having fun, why do it, right?
Exactly.
Unless you're getting paid remarkably well, which I imagine you're raking in millions, right? I assume.
I am a billionaire. I'm one of those unethical billionaires we constantly hear about at the moment. That's me.
Yeah. I don't know anything as an ethical billionaire, so I mean, it's kind of redundant when you say unethical billionaire, but that's fine. All right, Dael. Yeah, so I'm a big fan of your work. I actually found out about I found out about your channel after we did an interview with Jim Davis of WebDM, and
they're so nice. I love those.
They really are. Yeah, but more importantly, your work is really, really fantastic, and some highlights for me anyway. The Thieves Can't video, which is I'm just stealing like flat out from top to bottom. And gentlemen, what would you say are some other highlights of her channel?
I really like the animal companion one and how it handled that, and also just generally harvesting components and such.
I like that one. I that's one of the ones that I feel like, you know, I made it because I needed it for my game, and then I just put it on a video. And it's one of those ones that's maybe not the most popular or cool video topic, but very slowly. It's a slow burn of people who are like, wait, I actually need this for my game. That just makes me happy.
The stuff that is utilitarian like that, where you're like, oh, I need it, and when you recognize that other people are like, oh, I'm stealing this because it's super helpful, like that is you get like a nice little tingle in your chest, you know?
Yeah, in my heart place.
Exactly. Where your heart would be. Exactly.
Yeah. If I weren't an unethical billionaire.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man. Yeah. So can I talk to you real quick about your Druid video though? Because
sure.
So the Druid, I don't know if you were aware of this, and I know that's way too late, like whatever, it's not a problem. But one of the things that I was fascinated by with Druidic, the language that is Druidic, is like, hey, this doesn't exist anymore because it was basically like passed down from person to person, and then all of the Druids got killed by the Romans. That's fine. But then there's a like that's like one part of the history to it, and then there's another part that I'm like, man, why doesn't anybody else do this? Which is Druids used to like plant trees in a specific pattern, and it basically creates like a shorthand, and it's like, oh, I can recognize a pattern of trees, and as a Druid, yes. And I was watching the Druidic video earlier today. I'm like, I got to bring this up and talk about it because man, that's really cool.
Oh,
And
heck yeah.
Yeah, just tossing it out there because damn, that's cool.
No, that's
Like when
awesome
you
as
look at
well.
a
Oh, I was just because like when I was approaching Druidic, it was so conceptual for me because I don't have a druid in my party. The one player who is the most likely to play a druid. So no one else plays a druid because my friend Kate is always suspected of planning a druid. But then she always comes in and she's like, I didn't want to just be a cliche, so she never makes a druid. So we end up in this weird limbo where I just never have one. So it was all very conceptual and just theoretical for me. And I was like, oh, how would I do it? And so I was dipping into stuff I know from, the cultures around me. And it's very sort of Southern Hemisphere, very Australian. But that idea of the sort of classic Celtic druid that's like planting these trees in a pattern. Oh, that's sick.
yeah, I thought you'd appreciate that, and that's actually brings me to another point is you bring up the fact that like in that video specifically you have a lot of Australia like Aussie roots that very clearly are like an influence that you see in that video. I asked Jim Davis this, and I'm going to ask you this: how has growing up in your area in Australia like molded the way that you kind of build your own worlds? Because from what I understand, a lot of your videos are like Celtic or Northwestern European uh, based, right, for the most part.
Yeah.
So where does your like Aussie influence come in when it comes to world building?
First of all, I like that question. That's a great question. But yeah, I do think that Druidic is the place where it was the most obvious, but usually it's a really subtle thing. I think you're right because I've said 1,000 times, and I'll say it 1,000,000 times more, that I'm such a big believer in the power of shorthand, and the way that you can cut through having to explain a bunch of stuff, sort of in expository text or lore dumps to your players just by if you give them something that they recognize. So my game tends to be set in a northern hemisphere type place. North is cold, south is warm, just because I know that my players are reading the same books as I am and getting that same sense of like, this is a fantasy world, it's cold in the north. And I first noticed that when I didn't have a world yet. I was waiting to see what kind of characters my players wanted to play, and I was letting them tell me things about their characters. I sort of said, where did you grow up? What was it like? And one of them was telling me about how she lived in the north, and when it got snowy in the winter, and I was like, oh, okay, so that is a thing that we all kind of have in our cultural consciousness. So it tends to drift northern hemisphere in a lot of those senses, and drift European in a lot of those senses. But there are other places where the shorthand leans full on Australian. So like I was doing a world building stream yesterday, and at some point I was talking about the connotations of a name like Autumn. And I was like, yeah, because of course that is associated with not autumn, sorry, August. And I was like, that's associated with autumn. It's associated with, we're heading into winter, we're heading into death. And then I realized that for the northern hemisphere, August is not associated with autumn. It's like the last month of summer, which is like almost the complete opposite conceptually. And I was like, oh, there are these places where it just slips through into how we think about it just because we're in the southern hemisphere. It's a very sort of dry. I don't know how to describe the feel of the southern hemisphere, even though I like there are other places. I'm sure that it's different in lots of parts of South America, but yeah, I don't know, there's this vibe of like, well, we're under the equator and things are a little bit topsy-turvy here, and I think that just sneaks in every now and then when I'm using that shorthand to get information across.
Yeah, I would imagine that like culturally in the oeuvre of like fantasy and whatnot, there's not a lot of like Australian based fiction that's out there. Like for the most part, we're stuck with like Mad Max, which like don't get me wrong, Fury Road like top 5 movie for sure, but it's like, is that really Australia? Like
Yeah, and then
not.
it's tricky as well because like even when we do have pop cultural things, so there's for sure more Australian stuff that we get than that you get. But even when it's there, a lot of the time it is influenced by American texts or English texts or things like that, and it kind of and in a big way carries the sort of history of the Commonwealth with it. So you do end up in this weird place where it's like, even if it is Australian, it doesn't necessarily feel super Australian, particularly if you're talking about the genre of fantasy. It ends up tied into concepts of northernness. And I think I've only read a handful of books or watched a handful of movies that tap into the idea of magic but make it Australian.
Okay, one more question about the whole Australian thing before we move on. Have you seen the episode of The Simpsons where they go to Australia? And if you have,
Yes, I have.
what are your thoughts? How accurate? 90% accurate? 95% accurate?
Even if it wasn't beforehand, people have morphed Australian life in order to fit that episode. The amount of times in day-to-day life people will call money dollary-doos now. I'm sure it didn't used to be this way, but at some point that episode came out and everyone was like, that's it. We're playing knifey spoony and we're spending dollary-doos. The only thing people will ever complain about is the toilet water going the other way.
But okay, so I'm gonna say 100% accurate then. That's good. Great job, Simpsons.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, since you're on the subject of influences, at least when it comes to Australia there, and you mentioned texts, I was listening to the episode about creating gods, and your discussion of the numinous, when it comes to like C.S. Lewis, and how he talked about that. I was wondering what other literary influences have shaped like your storytelling and your play style over the course of your life.
Ooh, see, now that's interesting because I feel like my sort of core influences tend to be less literary, more visual,
Okay.
which is so odd. It's like paintings by Caspar David Friedrich or Sidney Long, who actually, P.S., very Australian painter. But it's weird. It's like old movies I watched when I was little. So it's like Return to Oz and Willow and, all these sorts of things. But then it's since I went to university, basically, my mother has a PhD in fantasy literature. And so
That's so rare.
right,
Wow.
I know, it's the coolest kind of doctorate. And my sister's on her heels. She studies nerds and is getting her PhD. So it's where I'm like the dunce in the family. And I don't think that I'm stupid. I just know that everyone around me is much smarter than I am. But
But
because
are they as entertaining? That's the thing.
I mean, probably. I have to assume I got it from somewhere. I'm the youngest of four. I had to get my entertainmenting from somewhere, I suppose. They don't act though, so I win there.
Yeah, there you go.
Ha ha ha. Finally a victory. No, but my mum sort of did her PhD in fantasy fiction, and it led to the point where I could be diving into a topic and I would be like, oh yeah, I want to do a video that's about gods, or I want to do a video that's about the Feywild, things like this. And I'll be talking about it and mum will just say, oh yeah, that's like this concept that pops up in this essay by Tolkien or this piece by, and she'll just give me these sources that come from the outside. And so then I have a bunch of reading that I can do beforehand and tie everything I already wanted to talk about. I get to tie it down into academic sources. But I do tend to come back to essays by Lewis and Tolkien a lot of the time because I think they talk about a lot of things that it's kind of because that's how I was raised on fantasy, is on those books. They're sort of novels, and it means that when they talk about it academically, it ties in with the way I'm already thinking about it in the perfect way because it's them, So I don't know. I'm gonna have to come up with a list. I should have made a list of
I mean, that could
really
be a video
good
unto
academic
itself, right?
sources. Actually, it probably could.
Yeah.
Now, knowing that you have an English major background, is that right?
Mhm.
I was listening to your video about narrative-centric combat,
Mhm.
and while the video itself is great, what I really loved was listening to your description of the actual setup for that scene. And so I wondered,
Thank
are
you.
you doing any other like creative writing, or do you have any other projects in the writing realm outside of the RPGs or the setup of your videos?
Weirdly, mostly my writing stuff at the moment is coming out in. I guess it's not that weird. But in the form of scripts. So I did Wolfgang, which was a big. It was meant to be written ahead of time and filmed ahead of time. Wolfgang, for anyone who doesn't know me, is a web series that I did about inner city werewolves when they're humans instead of werewolves. And it was a series that went over the course of a year, and just every time there was a full moon during the year, I released episodes. But the plan was to film it ahead of time and to write everything ahead of time, and that didn't work out because all my actors moved. So we only had these little patches when we could do it. So I ended up writing most of that myself rather than split between people and kind of in short pushes. And then at the moment I'm working on another project with a friend. So it's kind of, that's where a lot of my writing is happening, which is odd because what you're talking about is sort of description stuff versus a script which is all dialogue. I don't know, most of my sort of description-y bits do come out in my RPGs, I guess, because that's like I cannot help it. I always write myself a little bit of a script for an important point in a session. I can't just do it off the cuff because I know I'll mess it up. So I'm just this one's important. I'm gonna write it.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad that you liked it though. That makes me feel, every now and then I'm like, is this too over dramatic? Should I cut this from the video?
It's like, maybe you should think about doing some creative writing. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, well, one of my sisters is a writer. My sister Shannon she's so good. She's a brilliant writer. So it's something that I kind of dabble in from time to time, but she's definitely better at. She's practiced her craft.
See, in very much in the opposite direction of you, Dael, I actually improv I'd say that most of my proudest scenes that I've narrated, and I look at my players and they're like, oh, big deep gasp, I did not have pre-written at all. I don't pre-write anything for the most part. I have a skeleton and then kind of go from there.
See, I wish I could be that. That's what I long to be. I tried early on in my DMing career to be like that, and I just can't do it. I wonder if there's a latent fear of improving just because I've gone through acting degrees and stuff, and it's like, oh no, this again. Please no.
Yeah, you have shame of getting lines wrong, and I don't have that because I've never been an actor. So it's like, how can I fuck up something that I don't know exists?
Rob has no shame, basically.
Yeah, look, I can assure you that I have been immune to shame for some time. And you said you're the youngest of 4. I'm actually the youngest of 6. So I feel like, I feel like that kind of comes with the territory in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
The lack of shame, I mean.
For sure.
Well, one of them was also on the episode of Gods that I watched. It actually, I agree a lot with the fact that you kind of believe that God shouldn't be, this is the god of air, this is the god of water. It should be more kind of in the Greek mythology sense of this is a god and he was given domain over maybe the ocean or something. But I think in our world we actually took the exact opposite way of doing it, but mainly our gods were formed from those objects or beliefs.
See, that's an interesting approach. One of the biggest comments that I got under that video was people saying, but it shouldn't be about what the culture of the world believes because the gods are real. And I think that was a key point of difference that I should have spent more time talking about, because that's one of the things that for my setting, I don't make the gods concrete. I don't say this is a real being that actually exists and has, godly divine power over the world. Whereas a lot of people do have that be the case for their worlds that they're creating. And so that's sort of a key point of difference. I was approaching it from this sort of real world cultural perspective. But inherent in that approach was the idea that, that these gods have kind of been shaped by mortals rather than being and then being depicted by mortals. But no, I really like that idea of they're actually made from these elements. That's cool.
The other thing that kind of speaking to the gods that you were talking about, it's also the way that I think Tolkien liked to do it, as far as it wasn't the gods playing as direct of a role, at least in the later half of the ages, of where it was more of agents and kind of maybe they don't even exist, or to the regular person on the street, like a human wouldn't be like, oh yeah, no, I'm a worshiper of Manwë. We all know Manwë. We've seen him.
Right. And I mean, with Tolkien as well, it's because he's coming at it and he's trying to write a new mythology. And so he's as well doing it from within that kind of, it's not like he is someone in the real world writing the Poetic Edda. He's writing the saga of the gods, it's this whole separate thing. And then you get beyond that saga, beyond like the Silmarillion sort of stuff, and you get to the story of people. And that's where you get to his sort of Perilous Realm stuff, where he starts talking about, yeah, we've had that stuff. We have that sort of huge epic level of the mythology of it. Now here's what it looks like on the ground level when that mythology's already done that groundwork.
Also, as an aside, Chris is very excited that someone else loves Tolkien. Chris is our resident
to the point
Tolkien
of essay reading
here. Oh yeah, for sure. I am not a fan of Tolkien as a writer. I think he's a fantastic storyteller. I have issues with him in general.
I did a seminar in Tolkien way back in college.
Yeah. Again, hugely important. I just am not a fan of
you talk about him as if you grew up together and you're like, oh man,
he owes me
bullied
$5
me in the
he
third
knows
grade.
What he did. Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I think there's something to be said about that weird parasocial relationship when you read someone's work, right? Or you get so intimately familiar with not just their fiction, but also like if you read an essay by them, you kind of get to know them a little bit more than you would otherwise, right?
Yeah.
I think today we get like weird parasocial relationships with YouTube and stuff like that, or with TV stars, right? Especially now that Twitter's here. Like, how is that not like even less separate or more or less separated, right?
Yeah. Oh, man, I'm so excited that the broader world understands the concept of parasocial bonding now, because that was a thing that I did a minor in digital media and we learned about that, and I was like, why aren't people talking about this? This is it. This is like the problem with the internet that we keep coming back to. Yeah, anyway.
You're like the only other person I know that did that. A minor in digital media and a major in English, right?
And a major in theater as well.
Oh, that's so rare. Like I did a minor in digital arts too, and it's like I feel like it was such a bizarre combination, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy.
Now you're a computer programmer.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Well,
yeah. So I did want to bring that point up, right? Like, if a god is a concrete conscious being, wouldn't it make more sense that they would have more of a broad range of like ideas? Because they're gonna have like, if I'm a person, right? Like, imagine like I am a chef. Every chef is going to be different. They're going to have their own volatile personality. Like, as a god, wouldn't that be the same way? Like, yeah, I'm going to be the god of wine and war or whatever it might be. But like, you're going to have like these weird, like, I'm the god of wine and war, but I also really like cats. So like, that's not going to be in my portfolio. It's going to be a weird quirk that I have. And some people that I'm the god of cats as a result, like that kind of thing. When you add personality to the gods like that, like, you're bound to get like leakage into realms that would otherwise not necessarily cover what they should be, quote unquote specific to when it comes to their domains and whatnot.
Yeah, and you end up with this tricky thing of like, we don't have concrete gods in the real world. So then it becomes us just trying to imagine what it would be like if they were concrete. And the closest thing that we can do is that we make a person. And then once they're a person, it starts being like, okay, but you lose a little more sort of divinity every time you make them more human. And so it gets more, and it has this like central, that there has to be conflict at the heart of it as soon as you start making more gods. But it's kind of, it reminds me of that scene in Pyramids, the Discworld book, Terry Pratchett, where at some point towards the end, all of the gods appear at the same time, and you've got like a half dozen sun gods all having a football match over the sun because they want to be the one to carry it over the horizon. And it's like this thing of, because you've made them people, they're gonna butt up against each other in weird ways that doesn't happen as much if, you know, you're neatly creating them and going, well, no, because obviously that part of war falls under the category of Ares rather than under the category of Athena. You know, you can divide it more neatly if they aren't concrete.
Absolutely. And that's why when we were developing in our like early series, we kind of took the idea of like ancient Babylonian gods, you know, where it's not just a matter of, you know, it's kind of a thought process, this god Marduk, right? It's like, no, Marduk is a statue, and if you take the statue Marduk, you've taken our god. You know, like, so we wanted to play with that a little bit more, where it's like the gods are physical and concrete, and they're actually specific items.
Right.
So that way you can kind of mess around with that, and like, what does that look like? You know, when you have 4 gods of fire, and one's hearth, one's a candle, and then one's a forge, you know, what are the differences? What does that mean for each of those items and gods and stuff like that?
Actually, yeah, a lot of us has been focusing on ancient or at least medieval. Uh, what do you do? Like, do you run anything that's in the future or a modern setting? And what do you do for that?
I haven't yet, but I keep dabbling with. See, this is here. Here we go. This is my fatal flaw: is that I keep trying to design new systems to fit things I like. So, the one that I keep coming back to right now, sort of Buffy game, but then I'm like split between that and Kids on Bikes stuff. But then Kids on Bikes as well is a period piece. It's just more modern. It's you know, anytime before people had phones. So I'm dabbling in those things, but haven't really run much in that capacity. And I don't know what the tricky thing is that keeps kind of getting in the way, but I think that it might be armor. Just to be really bizarre and cryptic about it. I don't know. It's odd coming from. I certainly don't run a modern setting using like D&D or Pathfinder rules, because I just don't think they fit. But I'm also rarely happy. I shouldn't put this on a podcast. This will be terrible for my reputation. But I'm rarely happy with sort of the complete set of any modern rule book, just because I don't know. I think they usually are really good at character creation. They often hit a lot of points really well. But then because guns are commonplace or whatever, or you know, you have to drive a car, it's often modern technology gets in, and they don't know, whoever's writing the game doesn't know how to implement them mechanically into the system. And so once you get into the actual playing of the game, sections of it start to fall apart. And it's weird. It's because, you know, D&D lacks that meat in areas. You know, we say the 3 pillars of a tabletop. Oh, that was my chair, just for the record. There was a squeak and it was my chair. I would like the world to know. What was I talking about? Now I've gotten confused. Sort of there are these elements that are missing from D&D when we talk about the pillars of play. You know, you've got exploration and you've got role play in there. But both of those kind of just rely on the players making it up. And it's like, well, now you improv a bunch of things. We don't have any rules as scaffolding to help you through it. But we don't notice that because that's the way it's always been. Whereas when a new game comes along and is trying to create rules that help you play in a modern setting, once you're missing like really fleshed out rules to help you play a skill or help you in combat, that's when people start to notice, because we've had sort of D&D as a combat simulator for so long that once you hit something where role play and exploration are the big important things, it feels incomplete if you don't have a combat system built in there, because as well, players will just naturally try to engage in combat because that's how they've been trained to play. So that's my very long explanation as to why I haven't really played much in a modern setting, but I would like to get a Buffy game or a Kids on Bikes game going.
It's interesting that you should mention that, because like, or it's interesting that you should mention that D&D is training people to be like just purely combat focused for the most part. And I think that one of the most challenging things, as someone who tries to play more than just, you know, a typical fantasy RPG, is training people to not just immediately kill things right away. You know, like, even if you're in a city game, which is in a typical fantasy RPG, having those rules where you're not out in the wilderness and it's kill or be killed, where it's like, hey, you can actually just threaten them and they'll, or like you don't have to kill them. They will actually, raise their
Yeah.
hands and surrender and stuff like that. That is, I think that's really important, that D&D has like ingrained us that combat is the way. And I think that when you talk about the other pillars, I argue that like social mechanics are at least ingrained in the rules, because there's some like passages within DM books, they're like, hey, this is how you run skill checks and whatnot. But with exploration, that's almost been like left behind entirely.
Yeah, which
I
is
think.
it's so hard as well, because like the progression of classes is via combat. You get your new cool abilities, and almost all of them are combat abilities. And then you hit a class like the ranger class, where they try to make it good at exploration, but it falls flat because they've got such shallow exploration rules in place, and they've already kind of given you shortcuts to skip over it elsewhere, which is just unfortunate.
Yeah, and also I do have I have two recommendations for you to take a look at. One, Chris actually ran a game for us called Monster of the Week, which is
I've heard about
powered
it.
by the Apocalypse. Yeah. If you're looking for a Buffy game, that is probably one of the top recommendations I'd probably throw out there. And the second one I would recommend, it's a little bit more mystical, but it's called City of Mist, which
Ooh,
is
haven't heard
also
that one.
City of Mist is fantastic, and it forces. Hold on, let me try that again. City of Mist is fantastic in that its entire like deal is the more you role play, that's how you gain experience. And if you leave a certain aspect of your character to kind of rot away, then that aspect just disappears and you replace it with a new one. So
Ooh.
your character develops organically as you actually play the character, which I think is why I like it and why it's unique in that sense, that there are not too many games that I'm aware of that kind of do that thing.
That's really cool. It sounds kind of like you know how Fate is structured in terms of like, here are your aspects, you can kind of access these. But it sounds like Fate if there was more of a progression, like things actually developed over time.
Yeah, City of Mist is basically if the good parts of Fate and the good parts of Powered by the Apocalypse had a baby, I feel like this is where City of Mist comes in.
That's a good sell.
Hey, I mean, if they could send some money my way, or even an interview, that'd be cool too. I mean,
Thank you for sponsoring us.
If you're looking for a third like option there, and you're talking about exploration, getting away from everything being combat focused, there's a lot of games that have been reskinned from the old school. So it's called the old school revival that I've been really into lately, where they don't even have things like spot checks or detecting traps or even disarming them. You've got to do everything manually through the story, through the narrative. So I would be something I would say to check out too.
That's cool.
Daniel's D&D tastes, as well as his music tastes, have not evolved past 1997.
For good reason. There's just a lot of trash in the world. I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
Wait, and yet you love garbage. Like that's where your musical taste begins
Well, yeah,
and
that
ends.
was 1998. There you go.
Yeah. The irony there. Dael, how do you feel about garbage?
Garbage the band or garbage the genre?
She knows the band. She gets it.
Oh, if it's garbage the genre, I'm a huge fan of garbage the genre.
Garbage the genre is my favorite genre.
Yes, absolutely.
Are we talking about B movies?
I mean,
I love B movies.
Yeah.
I mean, not the
Very
B movie,
underrated.
but B movies. Yes.
Yeah. What's your favorite B movie?
Ooh. I mean, okay.
Or give me like a top. Give me like a pantheon. Give me your like greatest bad movies.
You're putting me on the spot here, man.
Yeah, that's what I do. Exactly.
Have you ever heard of Vibes? It is a movie in which Cyndi Lauper and Jeff Goldblum play psychics, and they have to go to South America to find sort of a magic alien pyramid artifact thing. They think they're there to find a missing person, but Cyndi Lauper can speak to ghosts, and Jeff Goldblum is psychometric. It's incredible. I love it to bits.
That sounds amazing, and I can't believe I've never heard of this before.
It's so good. It's so good.
I know. My Wi-Fi is literally named Jeff Goldblum. I mean, like, that's absolutely insane. I love that. That's amazing. All right, so that's an excellent recommendation. Thank you. Now to stay on topic, what kind of world building could you draw from the movie vibes here? What do you think?
What I would draw from that movie in an instant. Would I draw? Would I draw from it for D&D, or would I draw from it for a modern game though? Because I would love to run a game where it's just a bunch of psychics.
In what way? Are you talking about scam psychics or like real psychics, or maybe
Real
mix of both?
psychics. Okay. In the thread of like, here's a sort of low budget school, it's like a government offshoot, they have funding to research psychics, and here they have their team of 5 kind of crappy psychics who can all sort of do their little thing, but they can really do it, and they're solving mysteries. That's the kind of thing that I would love to have a tabletop RPG for.
That's that. So
Wow,
in the
total
vein of like
silence. We're
Scooby
blown
Doo
away.
mysteries. Yeah, no, seriously.
Like B-Team Fringe.
Oh man.
Well, I feel like there's a lot of TV shows with psychics where they're solving crimes. So maybe like a softer version of that.
Yeah. It'd be a nice, like, found family team version of that. I mean, if I wanted to pull from vibes for a fantasy game, then you've got all your classic, oh, here's an ancient artifact, and it whispers to you across the way, and it summons people long distance, and you can't avoid its call, siren, blah, 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 blah. That's fine. That's neat. But I want my found family team of psychics.
Speaking of psychics, have you ever played the game Psychonauts?
I have not.
Oh man, if you ever want so it's about a boy who is involved in the circus and runs away from the circus to go join a psychic camp. And
I'm a big fan of both circuses and psychic camps.
Yeah, and it's Double Fine, which is Tim Schafer, and it is fantastic. I would recommend it strongly to everyone. Actually, do we have any other questions? Because we're coming up on the Worldbuild Jam.
I had a couple of quick kind of bookkeeping questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, in your Wolfgang series, you talked a little bit about dealing with budgets and multiple personalities and trying to pay your actors.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any experiences, or things you learned that you can give as advice to other creatives when they're kind of managing their own projects?
Yeah, my biggest piece of advice, especially if you're doing like a really super low budget indie piece with just you and your friends, I think the biggest thing is you got to decide at the beginning whether you're going to direct your friends or not. It's a hard decision. It's a weird decision to have to make, but even though I'm proud of Wolfgang, I look back at it and I wish that I had decided to direct or not direct, because as it turned out, it was kind of me in the middle being like, oh yeah, that take was cool, can we try it? I mean, maybe if you, and it was just very sort of light touch, like, oh, I mean, that was, but maybe if you try it this way instead, and just kind of hoping for the best, hitting record, hoping for the best, and then trying to sort of direct in editing after the fact, which is hard. It's really hard to do that, and to change things just based on whatever footage you have. And I was lucky that I trusted the people I was working with and it came out good. But yeah, if I was on future projects, I would rather like say, okay, I'm gonna direct, it is weird because you're working with friends, which is always a strange zone. But I think honestly, everyone's there to get a thing done, and no one's going to hold it against you if you do decide to be the bossy director person for a little while. So that's one big thing. In terms of a budget, make sure that when you're writing the piece that you're keeping a budget in mind. I've got friends who I've tossed around ideas with for like, oh, let's film a little movie, and we'll throw scripts back and forth, and I'll receive a script that says like, oh, we open in a jungle and 5 jeeps roll up, and I'm like, we do not have access to a jungle or jeeps. Let's put it in an office and it's a guy in his work clothes looking out a window. There you go. That's it. That's what we have instead. So just keeping in mind what your sort of capabilities are while you're writing is a skill that you should develop, really. Those are probably my big tips.
So make sure you have a vision and make sure you can pay for that vision, is what you're saying.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
All right. So without further ado, gentlemen, we're good, right? Any other questions? So. Dael, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Excellent. So we're going to pivot into the Worldbuild jam session, which is certainly my favorite part of the interview. Not that you haven't been fabulous, Dael, but still, this is just going to be even better.
Wow. I know how you really feel.
Well, I'll just cut that part out. Anyway, so this is how it works. We're going to start off with this jam session by figuring out the genre. We're going to roll some dice, and between science fiction, fantasy, horror, modern day, romance, or a combination of the two, we'll figure out the genre. Then we're going to roll some more dice, and we're going to figure out the subject, whether it be an item, a monster, a place, a historical figure, an event, or again, some kind of combination of the two. And then once that's done, we're going to roll one more die and figure out the theme, which is between madness, sacrifice, love, metamorphosis, pride and honor, the unspeakable, triumph, and hope. And then once all that's done, we're going to roll another die and we're going to throw in a twist to just fuck up all of our work. So
I'm writing notes right now, and I just need you to know that when I wrote twist, I put an exclamation point. Twist!
Okay, it should also have an underline, just so we're clear, because that's how big that twist is going to be.
It sounds scary. Now. Just don't think about it.
Don't worry about it. So the first thing we're going to roll is the genre. So let's see what we got. I have fantasy, very appropriate. And then the subject, we have an event, and the theme is going to be hope. So Dael, we have a fantasy with a fantasy event, which the theme surrounding it is hope. And as our guest, you have the honor of starting us off.
Is it bad that my whole brain is just like, it's Star Wars? It's all Star Wars. This is Star Wars.
It's a new hope.
Sure, go for it. I mean, that's not bad at all.
Okay, so how does this work? What do we do?
We need a premise, basically.
Just a premise?
Start with the premise. Where does your brain go? Like you say Star Wars. In what sense? Like what kind of event within a fantasy where hope is part of the theme does your brain go? And just we're going to start creating.
My brain goes straight to a rebellion. It just does. It's like here's this dark regime and they've got this hold on everything, but there's a rebellion working against them. And that's the spark of hope that everyone's holding on to in this dark realm, this dark landscape.
Absolutely. And so let's name the event. What is the event? Is it the spark of the revolution? Is it where the revolution finally wins? Is it somewhere in between? What are we going for?
Maybe it could be a turning of the tides.
Maybe so there's an ongoing war. Okay.
Yeah. And this is like the moment that things it becomes like we could actually win this. Not just a helpless struggle, but like, hey, wait. This was a big victory.
How big is the rebellion?
And what's that victory look like?
That's a good point. Those are both good questions. Because I think the rebellion has to be not too big at this point, because if this is the moment when they turn the tide, they've been losing so far. So there can't be that much sort of going for them at this stage. But if they were clever, if they used just their small resources in clever ways to take out like a big resource that the bad guys have, that would be cool. Okay. What could that resource be?
I was going to say, let's name the resource. Let's figure out what the resource is. So we have very little information on the Empire and the rebels. What's the main source of power for the Empire? Let's start there, and maybe we can kind of figure out how they're going to cut that off.
Well, and
Ooh,
is this a set? What's the setting too? Because it's hard for us to design that before we know like literally where we are. Like, are we in
yeah.
Honestly,
space? Or are we on the planet?
We
well,
gotta differentiate ourselves from Star Wars. It's got to be on a
Yeah.
planet. It's got to be classic fantasy, but it's
Okay.
also kind of Star Wars, I think.
All right.
yeah,
So
it's Star Wars-esque.
yeah, it's Star Wars-esque. But ooh, here's a little shifteroo of those are words of the sort of
Been playing
Star
a
Wars
little bit too
pieces.
much knifey spoony, I see.
A little too much knifey spoony. But I think it would be cool if the bad guys, the baddie baddens, maybe they are the ones who have the most access to magic. Maybe that's how they've, kept everything on lockdown. It's like they have this academy where they train their magic users to wield magic fiercely, whereas and maybe they take kids if they show magical talent, and so they starve the non bad guy people of having any sort of magical resources of their own.
All right, so I want to stick with this theme of you being a villain, like a villainous billionaire. Let's go ahead and say that that the Empire are hoarding magic to themselves as well.
Neat.
And
Love it.
so obviously the rebels are going to try and redistribute magic as necessary. And
Yes.
and that's the way that the tides turn, is by redistributing. So not just like the one super powerful archmage and his academy of mages. Maybe it's going to go magic to everyone, kind of like a Piers Anthony Xanth type thing.
Yeah. They can bust open the academy and let all the younglings free. Notice my use of younglings. They can set them all free. They can take all the magical artifacts out of the vaults, whisk them off to different rebel leaders in different places.
I love it.
Liberate the magic.
So, to go back to Star Wars, but also kind of flipping it, what if the way that they enforce their rule was through a series of mage knights that are very powerful? They have access to magic, and also maybe they have access to magical blades. And through this,
Yes.
they kind of subjugate the people.
Yes.
So evil Jedi is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Oh my
legally
God, that's
distinct from
great.
Jedi.
Legally distinct.
Legally
Definitely.
distinct Jedi. Yes.
These
100%.
are magic knights, okay? They're very different.
Oh, I've got a twist there. A pre-twist. What if the rebellion used to be is led by a former very powerful mage knight or sorcerer who broke away from the unpleasant hegemony that ruled?
Yes.
Horribly
Oh, man.
scarred in an event that happened with fire magic. Is that what you're...
Okay, hold on. I feel like we're almost at the point, but before we do, the event is the tides turn. So do they free the younglings, and how does that happen? Let's make that event concrete.
Can we
gotta
call
kill
it
the
the tides
younglings.
of magic turn?
Oh yeah,
Love
of course we're gonna call it that. Yes. All right. So what does that look like? What's that event? Is it is magic literally locked in a vault, and this is like the vault breaker, or is what does it look like? What do you think?
The only image that's coming to mind is such a cliche, but also I kind of like it, is that there's a crystal somewhere that is locking in magic. It's like you can only access magic via this thing. But if you smash that crystal, it's like and it goes everywhere and it spreads throughout
All
the
right.
world.
I love
Okay,
it.
there we go. So we've gotten the breaking of the magical crystal, which then releases magical energy to everyone in the world. And that's the rebellion. That's where everything starts to shift. And thus, now that we have this really cool premise, we're going to fuck it all up by adding in a twist. So I'm gonna
Oh
roll this
no,
die.
a twist? Underline
Yes.
exclamation point?
Yes. Add a
Don't forget
second
the aliens
underline
one.
as I roll this
It
die.
was
Let's
aliens
see what
all
happens.
along. Come on.
Yeah, I hope it's the aliens one.
All right. What did I get? No,
Aliens,
we already
aliens.
did that one.
Aliens.
And I dropped the die? Oh,
Aliens.
God, what's
It's a bad
happening?
omen. It's a bad omen. This is going to be a dramatic twist.
Okay. No, here we go. We got it. It's fine. Now make it strange. No, stranger than that.
Oh.
Is that
Ooh.
actually what is written?
Yes.
Now we
I
can't go the cliche route of strange equals Lovecraft, so I'm gonna veto that.
Son of a
No,
bitch.
but what we can do is we can now make it so everyone has a stand a la JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Oh, so the
Oh
magic gets
my
weird, is what
God.
you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. So
Mm.
not when everyone gets magic, it's not just a matter of, hey, I can cast fireball on demand. It's like, hey, at noon, I can actually cast shadows when no one else can, and I can steal other people's shadows to make them do my bidding.
Ooh, that's
Oh.
Weird,
cool.
like absolutely strange stuff to do with magic. So let's go ahead and figure out what else we can do
I've
with
got
that
something
influence.
added to that.
Go
Like
ahead.
maybe they start to realize that there's a reason why they built that crystal. That magic
Mm.
isn't supposed to be this weird and all over the place, and it needs to be tamed in some way.
Oh, magic
Okay.
needs a containment.
Mm-hmm.
The
Oh, okay,
reason the
okay,
Mm.
knights
okay.
were important was the discipline that they had. Granted, they were
Yes.
subjugating people, but when the uncontrolled or the uninitiated have it, the chaos is just well,
Yeah,
magic
Oh
is
my
just chaos.
gosh. Have any of
Wow.
you seen, there was a show, it only ran for one season, which was fair, but it also was a good concept. It was called The Lost Room.
Oh, never heard of that.
That sounds very familiar.
It
What is
was
that?
it's so the premise this is where it's getting a bit weird. So the premise of the show is that in, I don't know, like the 70s or something, there was this hotel room. A guy is, it's like a motel in the middle of nowhere. The guy has just stopped off. He's staying there for the night, and some event happens, and no one knows what the event is. But basically, everything that was in that motel room became kind of imbued with these weird powers.
Oh, I
And so
heard of
you've
this.
got things, yeah. And so the main one that the show is kind of following is the key. It's a very desirable item because if you use the key, so it's basically if you use the item as you're supposed to, often is when you get to access its power. So the key, if you use the key in any lock, it'll open the door into the motel room at the time of the event at that exact moment. So you'll be in that room in the 70s. It's empty at the moment because all the items are out in the world. But as items are left in the room, they kind of go to where they were during the event. But then you've got other things like a bus ticket that teleports people to a bus stop kind of near that motel. Or you've got a pencil that when you tap it on a table, a penny just pops into existence. Or you have really super weird ones like a wristwatch that if you put an egg in the middle of it, it boils the egg. So people have just been collecting these items and slowly working out what they can do. But if you put like the pen and the wristwatch together, you get telepathy. It's like this crazy bunch of random abilities that you just kind of find out about throughout the course of the show. That's the kind of sort of that's the level of magic powers that I'm envisioning.
Yeah, and absolutely. So that's what we'll do. Instead of imbuing people with magic, it imbues the entire world. Every item now is imbued with that weird magic. That's a great, amazing idea.
And it still ties in with the whole mage protector sort of thing because the swords they wield must be the items of power in the same way that
Mm.
now they're all over the place, those sort of items.
No. The swords themselves. Hold on. The swords themselves are actually shards of the crystal,
Oh,
like
there you go.
that are just like crystal blades.
Ooh.
Yes. Oh my
So
God.
it's like
Okay.
pure magic. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Perfect.
Yeah. Wow.
Shard blades.
All right.
Shard blades. Oh, I love
Like
it.
crystals. Like crystals.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think that's it. That wraps it up and nails it down. I don't think we're gonna get better than that unless someone else has a better idea.
Well, we got to stick Palpatine in there somewhere, but I'm sure he's somewhere in there.
Papa
Yeah,
Pal.
He
big
exists
Papa
out.
Palps. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dale, let me ask you a random question real quick.
Yes.
Do you know anything about professional wrestling?
I do not.
Okay.
Which
Then
is
never
probably
mind, we're gonna skip
I
it.
shouldn't say I now am friends with like multiple semi-pro wrestlers, so they can never listen to this. They can never know that
Wow.
I know nothing.
That's something.
I'll censor it, and then people will just leave it to their imagination.
Yeah.
It's fine. Okay. So Dale, we're gonna go, thank you so much. That's awesome. We're gonna go ahead and roll into the lightning round. Are you ready?
I don't think I will ever be ready, but you can go ahead.
Cool. Okay. So my wife wants to know, is cereal a soup?
I have to say no for my own sanity.
Thank you.
Okay. What have you been playing recently?
Just too much Dragon Age Inquisition. Way too much.
Okay. And
Oh, and Banner Saga.
Banner Saga is so good. I've been getting back into Darkest Dungeon recently, which is unrelated, but anyway. Who is someone who you would like to shout out that you think deserves like a shout out right now?
Probably, let's see. The first person who comes to mind is Vi from Collabs Without Permission, who just makes just really cool, weird tabletop RPG content. So a lot of reviews or it's just sort of, it's very exploratory content, but it's usually very good content. So Collabs Without Permission on YouTube.
My rapid fire, whether or not you use this in your gameplay, what would be your favorite alignment to play?
Ooh, this is meant to be rapid fire, but I can't pick because I love them all. Maybe, I'm torn between either lawful good or chaotic neutral, but not chaotic neutral in the chaotic neutral kind of a way, but like actually playing someone who is chaotic neutral in terms of they're not here one way or the other to help.
Independent.
Yeah, they're just they're doing things, but not as an excuse to just do random crap.
Favorite character in the Neverending Story?
Oh, I'm gonna say it's gotta be Falcor. I dressed as a luck dragon once for a party.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And finally, why don't you go ahead and plug yourself? Tell us where we can find you. Tell us all about yourself and all that good stuff.
Oh wow. You can find me in many places on the internet. On YouTube, the channel is Monarch's Factory. That's kind of my home. It's where I live. But I'm also on the Twitters and the various other social platforms. But I did not understand the importance of consistent branding until it was too late. So the easiest way to find me on any platform is to Google Dael Kingsmill and the platform that you're looking for, because I have a different handle on most of them.
I was actually going to ask why Monarch's Factory, but that kind of explains itself.
Well, actually, Monarch's Factory is because Kingsmill,
yeah,
Monarch's Factory. But that was my sister Raywin came up with that, and it was by far the best name that we had. I nearly made my channel name Daily Dale, but at the time Daily Grace was still a thing, and I was like, I can't do that. That's not an available option for me. So Monarch's Factory it was.
All right, and that will wrap it up. Dael, thank you so very much. It's been a real pleasure.
It's been so nice. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I'm glad to be with you
Thank
here
you.
at the end of all things.
I really, yeah. We hope you're doing well. I mean, there's nothing dangerous in Australia, so that's fine.
Yeah, we're totally fine here.
Yeah. All right. And again, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time, I guess, right?
Bye.
And that was our interview with Dael Kingsmill. I hope that you had as much fun listening to it as we did recording it, because, man, there were a lot of great ideas getting thrown around. And also, I mean, dollary dues and spoon, all that good stuff.
That entire time, I really thought that it was true about the toilets. I did not know. What?
Wait, go ahead. Say that again into the microphone.
So this entire time, I really thought that was true about how the toilets and sinks just spun a different direction.
Wow. Okay.
I did not.
Hey, it's not
It
far-fetched.
made perfect sense to me.
Their country's weird and has horrible monsters in it. It's basically
It's upside down.
Yeah, it's upside down. Lord of the Rings stuff goes on there. I don't blame you.
All right, and I know that after doing that interview that Chris is definitely a subscriber now, a #1 fan, follows her on Twitter and YouTube and stuff like that. Not only is she a fan and a kindred spirit of the soup debate, cereal being a soup, of course, but also Terry Pratchett and making stuff that, maybe I'm not so much into, but Chris definitely is.
Well, she
So,
also likes Star Trek, which I think is a big thing.
yes,
And
yeah.
Discworld.
Mm-hmm.
I said Terry Pratchett, didn't I?
But then if
Discworld.
but what if she's a Picard fan, guys? Though I think we'd have to cut ties forever.
You know, we'll actually just have to have her back on so we can be
Yeah.
like, look, we're gonna have a debate. Well, actually, I don't give a fuck about Picard. So
Well, we could we
fine.
could debate. I love that. Oh my god, get ready.
Oh, hold on. I'm sorry, Dale, but I do have to talk to Jim Davis real quick because
Yeah.
Jim Davis, I did watch Willow, and man, like that's one of his favorite movies of all time. That movie does not age well. That movie
Maybe
is not very good, actually.
maybe
That's like
maybe
a
Jim and her
7
could have
on
like a
10 at
history
best.
off.
Oh no, because that's where we just fall in love with each other all over again. Like
With Jim Davis.
yeah, with Jim Davis. Like Willow will drive us apart, and history
Yeah,
will bring us back.
Bring it back together again. But no, I'm saying
Absolutely.
like Dale and Jim can have like a mythology off where they've got to like spout mythology
man.
facts, and
Okay.
until one of them can't.
All right, our goal now is to get big and famous enough where we can go to a convention where both of them are, and just have a nice little like.
They've got to do it
podcast.
as a rap though. That's the thing. It's got to be a mythology rap off.
Honestly, I feel like Dale would definitely win that.
I think
if
she'd
that's
win.
the
Yeah,
case.
my money's on Dale. Sorry, Jim.
Yeah, for
I mean,
for
theater.
sure. Yeah, but it's the theater. It's the I mean, also, hold on, because Jim does have the whole like preacher background, so he has the oration.
Oh, true. He might have staying power.
Hold
Yeah.
on, well, depending on what denomination, he might not have the rhythm for it. So
Right.
we'll have to talk to him
Yeah,
about that too.
Like I went to a lot of Baptist churches, so I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I think with our rattling on, that's going to do it for this episode. I apologize deeply to everyone involved with us. But honestly, that was a lot of fun. If you haven't already, go and subscribe to Monarchs Factory. Go follow Dale on Twitter. All of her information is going to be in the link in the description and all that good stuff. And if you want to go ahead and send us any kind of email letting us know how wrong or right we are, or if you have suggestions for a prompt that we can kind of follow and create with, you can email us at worldbuildwithus@gmail.com, or you can go ahead and shoot us a DM or a tweet at Let's World Build. And until next week, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone else, we remember that we just love you very much. We hope that you have a great day, and if you don't, it'll get better soon. And we'll see you next time.